Well, good evening, everybody. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank, and I am Spencer Keck, running for magistrate in District 3 here in Hardin County, Kentucky. And I'm coming at you live from Tunnel Hills. Y'all, this is quite a week because the orange buffoon has said the quiet part out loud, if you didn't catch it. Now, why do we care? Well, again, here in Hardin County, we know that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what makes it all worthwhile. And what he said out loud is directly in defiance of our pursuit of happiness. And it is an affront to our life and our liberty. So we've got to get back to government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So if you hadn't read the headlines, here's what we found out. Our commander in chief thinks that basically he doesn't have to think about us. Because he said, when asked by a reporter, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal? Trump responded directly, not even a little bit. I don't think about Americans' financial situations. Now, don't that just beat all? Is this going to be a final wake-up call? You know, I have many, or I should say a couple friends, a family member or two that told me that they voted for this guy because he was going to keep us out of a war. It was sure this election, if she were elected, you know who she was, that we would be going into a nuclear war. And we'd go into any war, period. Then we'd have another ever-ending war. Well, here we go. We are in an ever-ending war. And we know that it was uncalled for. We still don't have a strategy for what we're doing there, why we're there, what we're going to do to know when we've reached an objective, because we don't even know what the objective truly is. So we've got a war that folks voted for this guy because he promised no new wars. Vice President promised no new wars. And even Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath said some of the same things running up the campaign. But here we are. We've had how many wars? Venezuela. A war of tit for tat and threatening a war over Greenland. Got rid of our great allies, or tried to, our great allies at Denmark, that I've actually done joint operations with in the past. Affronted our ally Canada by saying they must become our 51st state, either by choice or by force. Now, they did not take that bullying statement lightly. And then we slapped some severe tariffs on them, one of our greatest trading partners, a country that bought, I should say, so many of our soybeans and other products, and we have so many joint capital ventures with them, and we know that they were a huge component of buying bourbon. That bourbon industry took a huge hit here in Kentucky when the Canadians realized they were under threat and decided they were going to drink their, in my opinion, less worthy whiskey and be happy with it instead of contributing to our economy and our tariff taxes. So it's hurt Kentucky. And here he said the quiet part out loud. To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal? And Captain Bone Spurs replied, "Not even a little bit. I don't think about Americans' financial situations." So, quiet part's been said out loud. He has dressed himself up in memes that he made as if he's, we're supposed to see him as Jesus healing someone with a magic orb. Now we know there's a golden statue to him in Doral. Again, guys, every single day it seems like something else is out there to show us what's really behind the curtains. And now it's impossible truly to act as if there's nothing going on, as if this is all normal, as if it is all something that we must live with and accept. So, what are we going to do? Let me give a quick shout out to Ding. Ding, if you're still there, I see you made a comment there. Hope you're having a great night. All right. Well, so we know he's got his little statue, big statue, actually, that is, in Doral, dedicated by MAGA preachers, MAGA rabbis, and some major billionaire donors. Well, just so turns out that, here's some breaking news. Antifa thugs erected obscenely subjective Benjamin Netanyahu statue right next to the 15-foot tall Donald Trump at his golf course at Donald Trump National Doral in Florida. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Now, in the same time this is happening, we know that our great Captain Bone Spurs is over in China. And the Chinese have been brilliant. They have rolled out all the red carpets, had singing school children, because we know he loves those, out there singing songs to greet him on each side of the red carpet as they came off the plane, waving American flags and Chinese flags together. And what does this guy love more than, fellatio in public? If someone will give him fellatio right in public, praise his greatness, they can walk him through whatever they want. And we're going to see that, I predict, over the next couple days. China is going to walk him right down whatever desires and designs they have for us. After all this crap that we went through with the Chinese tariffs, losing them as soybean consumers of our local farmers' soybeans, and putting the pinch on Americans, not even just a pinch, the strangle on us and our personal economics. Now this guy is being fellatioed by China, and he brought in Musk and so many other leaders of American industries, and he's begging for partnerships. Is no one paying attention to the complete irony here of, here we are, May 13th, 2026, and we're down to begging China for partnerships after trashing ones that we already had. They're beating us in the EV battery production, guys, if you didn't know. They are now the world dominant leader in EV battery production. We had a multi-billion-dollar project in Glendale, Kentucky, right here in this county, and we should have been the EV giant of the world when it came to EV batteries. And what happened? This president Got that down when he closed down all of the incentives to buy EVs, and when he made it a lot easier and took all those restrictions on miles per gallon that a vehicle has to have by what 2036, I forget the exact date. Those are gone now. So he wiped out something that we were becoming the world leaders in. He said he was going to bring back production and manufacturing to the United States, and he destroyed it right here in Hardin County, Kentucky. And now he's over there begging them, absolutely begging them for partnerships. So, if the writing isn't completely on the wall now, what can we do to make it obvious? I'm really not sure. But I think this is an obvious sign. What do you think? Now, that's not the only thing that's happening with Israel. We know that Israel has stepped up Gaza attacks amid this Iran truce and says Hamas is rearming. So here we go. We're being walked into all kinds of situations that American finances are not here to handle. Not Main Street finances, maybe Wall Street finances, but not Main Street finances. And you can take that statement to the bank and cash it in if there's anything left in the bank after a few more months of these shenanigans. So, all right, let's see what other comments we got here before I move on a bit more. So again, Ding said hello. Hello, Ding. Good to see you there. All right, now what else is happening in the world news? Well, the Lincoln Project, of course, I'm a big Lincoln fan. The Lincoln Project has put out an amazing ad that I think kind of sums up what we're talking about here. So let's take a gander at it.
It's tough out there. Gas is up over $5 in some places and rising. Your grocery bill, out of control. Healthcare, good luck. Silicon Valley billionaires and Wall Street hedge funds are doing great. People like us, hurting. There's a reason 70% of Americans say their economic situation is bad. Inflation and affordability are killing us. But what is Trump calling?
A good line of bullshit.
So the next time you're filling up or in the grocery store, remember, when Donald Trump and Republicans say they care about your problems, it's
a good line of bullshit.
Well, it is a pretty good line of BS. That is absolutely for sure. Straight from Captain Brumsbur's mouth. Can anybody put it more
Starting
succinctly?
on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about American financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
He doesn't think about Americans' financial situations. In the pantheon of presidential gaffes, this is a big one. And there's a narrative I've told you where people say, oh, Trump gets away with everything. Nobody cares. And then there's the reality that his polls are crashing, Republicans retiring, Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson saying he's, quote, evil, and they're done with him. And we're still in the beginning of this. Donald Trump's already crashed to the worst second-term approval of any president since we've been measuring. And comments like this obviously don't help.
So it's not just comments like this, but it's actions that we've been seeing over and over. And you see every day if you're going to the gas pump. Thank God today I got my electrical vehicle back from the shop. It had been there for a bit, and I had to go for nearly a week of pain at the gas pump with y'all. But now I'm back, and I'm paying pennies per mile for my travels. So glad that I invested in that, saw the writing on the wall a few years back. And hopefully, this will be our wake up call to come back as the strongest EV producers in the world. We have this capability. We can wrench this back from China if we'll get some people with real cojones to stand up to this BS. But that's, again, Lincoln Project's right on it. It is BS. So now, in the meantime, we know that Ukraine and their democracy still on the precipice, still need help. They've actually shown that they're very capable of fighting this fight if they have the tools they need, and that they don't need Americans to go in and do the fighting for them, to drop the bombs for them. They're very capable of doing it as long as we just give them a little bit of support, as long as NATO does, all of NATO. So, in an unexpected move, we've actually seen movement on this that's bipartisan and actually making sure we save another democracy from being overthrown. So the U.S. House members defy leadership to force a vote on Ukraine aid. This is really unexpected, and Captain Bonesboro's, he's got to be reeling from this situation and from this announcement. So now, Whiskey Pete Kegsbreath is gaslighting us. He's saying that Iran ceasefire is holding despite exchange of fire in the Gulf. I mean, how much more gaslighting do we need? Israel is attacking and trying to use the excuse of saying that Hamas is resurging. Anything they can do to keep this conflict hot. And of course, this president and Whiskey Pete want to act like there is no war going on right now, that there is actually a ceasefire. That way, they don't have to get congressional approval since we're over 60 days into this BS. So, again, are we going to see other folks bold enough in the GOP to step up and take bold actions like they just did on Ukraine vote? That's what I'm waiting and hoping to see. So, another thing that's coming out. Finally, a congressman admits that 39 U.S. Air Force aircraft were destroyed in this Iran war so far. Guys, the costs of that are astounding. Go look up the price of these aircraft and multiply it by 30, and you'll be clutching your pearls. Well, I just don't know what it's going to take for everyone to stand up to the nonsense, to the fact that we are not in a situation that we expected to be if you're a person who voted for this guy. I know you didn't vote for these exorbitant gas prices due to a war that you voted against, you thought, by voting for him. You didn't think that the Dunning-Kruger effect president would be so drastic as to go into a conflict and not be sure to seal up the Strait of Hormuz on our own before we started going crazy. But that's what we did. We had the capability of sealing up that strait, just like we did during the Gulf War, if we had run this thing properly. But it's not being run properly. And, Iran, as I've said before, I was in the first Gulf War. Iran tried to flex with us at the end of the Gulf War and came and surrounded the frigate that I was on. But you know what? Back then, they knew better. We were prepared. We were not prepared for this. And any of our preparations did not account for the effects of the drones that Iran has. So, once again, we just got to remember this is something that was avoidable. Now, if you're having some regrets, there's still some things we can do. Every single one of us can make a call to our congressman. You can call your senators, call your representative, and tell them where they can put their efforts to shut this down. So remember, as this meme here says, with midterms looming and affordability on voters' minds, President Trump was asked if Americans' financial situation was motivating him to make a deal with Iran. Not even a little bit. You just heard him say it. I played it live for you. But just bringing it back to that again. Here we are, here in Kentucky. We have the 19th. It's the official primary day. But if you are allowed to, for medical reasons and other things, vote earlier than early voting, you can already be in there voting. I did. 15th, early voting opens up. And it's time. It is time to go to the primaries fully charged and ready to put someone on the ticket that is going to push back against this absolute utter nonsense, this Dunning-Kruger effect that I talked about last night. We've got to smack it down once and for all. But we can only do that if all of us surge to the polls in November with candidates that we decide on in the primaries right now, this month here in Kentucky. Some other states have already had their primaries. Others are having it later. But Kentucky, it's our time now. And as I reported on also, our county clerk here in Hardin County says there has been more activity in this primary than there was in the last presidential election. More folks taking part than in the last presidential election. So this is going to be extremely interesting election. Now, y'all, before I go on, please, if you would, hit like, hit subscribe, share this with your friends, with your family. Let them know that, hey, maybe if you've seen him now dress up as Jesus, of course, we saw him dress up as a pope before that, but, and say, hey, elect me as pope. We've seen him give memes of putting complete piles of shit on Americans. That didn't bother anybody. But when he dressed up as Jesus, healing people, that started to bother some folks. Now, with the gas prices the way they are, the cost of fertilizer the way it is for our farmers, and maybe a statement like this, him telling us he doesn't care what our gas prices are. He doesn't care what the cost of fertilizer is. He doesn't care that the best bourbon in the world, made right here in Kentucky, isn't being sold nearly as much as it was before he came into office and put these tariffs on the whole world. and especially on the bourbon buying world. And that they have now shut down buying our amazing bourbon, which employs so many hardworking, honest Kentuckians. He doesn't care that now the pinch is being felt, the squeeze, the stranglehold is being felt on our finances. Not even a little bit does he care. You just heard him say it live a second ago. So, how many more things do we need to see him say, for us to be like, yeah, we've got to do something. And our congressmen are the ones that have to do it. Our congressmen and women have got to get into action. Now, we've been told by this administration that, they've done everything and destroyed Iran's missile sites, that they're really incapable of doing anything now. Well, shocker here, but it turns out that's also a bunch of complete BS. Horrible, horrible BS is what it is, matter of fact. Iran restored 30 of 33 Hormuz missile sites, the United States intelligence reports. This just came out, New York Times reporting on this. So it's been for naught. All of the missiles that have been fired at our allies and at us, they're back online again. All but 3 back online. Not to mention their drones. So everything we have expended on this is for naught. They're not shutting down their capabilities. They have the cards. Or since he showed us a meme the other day of him holding the Uno cards and lots of them saying he has all the cards. Yeah, you don't want it when you're playing Uno. You don't want all the cards. That's the whole point. But Iran's been happy to give all those Uno cards to him so they can have none and win the Uno game. And they know it. This is proof of it. So, again, what more do we need to see in order to realize, yeah, we are absolutely in it, in deep. We're sitting in the sewage tank right now, and we're being told that it's a good place to be. But, I'm not believing it. All right. Well, we're also finding out that one of the allies that I thought was pretty incapable, so-called allies, folks that I think that from what I've always seen when I operated with them in the military, the guys I'm about to show, they really think of us as their mercenaries because we depend on their oil so much. And we'll do anything to fight for their oil. And we have again and again and again. So I was surprised when I saw this. Saudi Arabia launched covert attacks on Iran as the war widened, sources say. Very interesting. Again, like I said, I've never had much respect for their military because it's complete nepotism and cronyism, what I ever saw. But hey, at least they put some Air Force pilots into action. Y'all, let me know what you think there in the comments. And if you want to dial in, talk to me about it live. My number is 606 253 9885. I'll open up the lines for a little bit here and see what you think. Are your finances where you thought they would be after this guy was elected? Or did you get a little flim-flam job from this? Or did you vote the other way? And yeah, you know, yeah, you just aren't surprised at all. So call me and let me know what you think. Keep the phone line open for her here for a little bit, and see if anybody else is out there tonight listening that wants to comment on what's going on. All right. Now, in the meantime, take a little break here. Gonna reminisce. I think I showed this not too long ago, but it's one of my favorite videos from my grandkids in California that I miss so much. And this is one of the funniest videos that I ever made with them. And yeah, there still are some crazy cool guys in my book. Yeah. So, man, those guys, miss them. Great, great, great. Those grandkids are something else. And yeah, if you don't have any grandkids, that's really what makes it all worthwhile. Makes it all, you know, yeah, makes life worth living. Well, y'all, um, you know, just remember it is us that put this guy into office, and we can take him out by voting. All right, that's what it, if we want 86-47, we can only do that by voting. And midterms, we can take away all of his power if we take back solid control of the Senate and of the House. And that's what we need. We need a solid majority. We need a 2/3 majority so that we can veto anything that he vetoes, will have the power to come right back and override that veto. That's what we'll have to shut this guy down. If you want someone to care about your finances, then we have got to get serious about our midterm elections, about the folks that we're voting on right now in the primaries. And we've got to take our friends to vote, our cousins to vote, our neighbors to vote, even our enemies to vote if they're going to vote the right way. Get people registered to vote that have never thought about it in their whole life, but explain to them that democracy, it's not a spectator sport. It's an active, hands-on activity and sport. We all have to be in it to win it. If we're not all in it to win it, then they'll just hand us whatever they want, as the billionaire class will be victorious. Now, I'm not down on anyone who actually is in the billionaire class and pays their taxes and actually cares about this nation. But the folks in that Epstein part of the billionaire class, we know who they care about, only themselves. And y'all, if you didn't know it, one Trump class battleship cost the same as healthcare for 2 million Americans. Put that in your pipe and smoke it as we ride out of here tonight. And let's remember that, like I said, it's up to us. No one's come to rescue us. We're the only ones that can take us out of this. We got ourselves into it through voting. We can get ourselves out of it by voting. Otherwise, we're just going to be the bitches for these folks. And that's not what we want. I don't want my grandkids to be the bitches of the uncaring elite. That's my 2 cents worth. You can take that to the bank. And if you'll elect me for magistrate in District 3 here in Hardin County, I promise to have your economic plight as my central focus in everything that I do. It's not going to be just about me. It's going to be about this community and about the future that I'm leaving to my kids, my grandkids, and to their kids. That's what it's about. It's about the livability factor that we all need. Hey, Tom, good to see you on here tonight. Tom says, a lot of my friends say that we won't get out of it by voting alone, and I see their point. Well, we'll get out of it by not just voting, but by deciding who's going to be on the ballots. That's what these next 6 days are all about. Making sure that the folks that have put themselves out there to be elected are worthy. We can't complain in November about who's on the ballot if we didn't take part in deciding who's on the ballot in these primaries. And if you said, oh, I'm not ever going to register as a party person, and you decided to stay independent here in Kentucky, where you can only vote in the primaries if you're registered in one of the parties, well, you decided to be part of the problem this time around, not part of the solution. You decided to let someone else decide for you who you could vote for after the primaries come November. And that's a problem, right? It takes getting out, constantly being in the email box of your senator and your representative. It takes getting out and being in the email box, not just of your federal senator and your federal representative, but the same thing with your state ones. It takes being in the email box and on the phone with your county government. If you elect me as magistrate, I will expect you to be able to know my phone number and contact me about anything that you need that a magistrate can take care of in this county. You know where potholes are that aren't being taken care of, you'll be able to give me a call. You know that your EMS system is letting your part of the county down, you can call me to let me know that you expect me to do something about it. That's my promise. Take that to the bank. So, all right, Tom, what else are you saying? Tom says, what else we need to do besides get folks a farther left perspective in office is a mystery to me. I'm not burn it all down so we can start over person, but it's close to what happened to not see. Well, the Constitution was written so that we don't have to burn it all down every single time we realize there's a glitch in the system. That's the beauty of the U.S. Constitution. It was written to be amended when necessary. Now, we've only had, thought that it was necessary 20 some times now, because we also made sure that it wasn't just the easiest thing to do, so that, with any wind of change that's not well thought out and well measured and well studied, that we could constantly be in turmoil. But when there is a real structural change needed, a deep structural change needed, we have the ability to amend our Constitution to make structural changes. We've done it before. That's what those first 10 amendments to the Constitution were all about. We realized we left some real structural deficits in the original Constitution before we made, or this nation fully put it to the test. So once we started putting our Constitution to the test, we realized those 10 amendments were needed, and they've been the bedrock, really, of our government. Then, of course, we realized after the Civil War that we really had a major structural deficit in our Constitution, that we weren't living up to the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as being the cornerstone of human existence. So that's when we passed the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendments. That's when we made all men truly free and equal. We can do more, but it will take men and women of true character and grit and intestinal fortitude, the willingness to work with people with different perspectives and ideas, compromise as necessary, as we've had to do so many times in our history, in order not to burn it all down and watch our kids get killed by the other side and by marauders. Anyone who thinks that burning it down and starting all over is the idea, they've never fucking been in combat in nations that did that, like I have. They've never watched children get their bodies blown apart and torn apart, like I have. What I've seen overseas, I don't want to see in this nation. We have a constitution written so that if we truly will stand up and all vote against tyranny, we can change the system. But look at the actual percentage of folks that truly vote. It is so goddamn small compared to the rest of the democracies in the world that are actually fully functional and capable compared to us. So many other democracies have a much higher turnout of voters when it comes to election time. And we've got to have that happen. Too many people are complacent. Too many people are willing to be led like sheep to the slaughter on a daily basis, as long as they get some good chow along the way to the slaughterhouse. We've got to end that with structural change by putting in real leadership. And of course, one of the biggest ways to do that is we've got to get rid of Citizens United. That's the bane to the existence of our democracy in a public. All right, y'all. I pontificated far too long. No one's bothered to call 606-253-9885 to tell me if you're getting what you voted for, if you voted for Captain Bone Spurs, or if you have any regrets and now realize we've got not only a warmonger, but someone who is a war profiteer, whose sons are profiteering off of this whole debacle, and yet none of them have the intestinal fortitude to join the military and actually get into this fight that they're making millions and billions off of. But I'll be back on tomorrow night. If you want to call in then, I'll leave the line open then again. I'll open it back up then. Until then, let's remember everyone deployed overseas. Let's remember that they're in it so that we can win it. But we don't want to put them in something that is untenable and will lead them to slaughter. All right, y'all. I love my neighbors as myself. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. And I know that by doing that, I am helping be a part of a united Kentucky, where united we stand and divided we fall. I cannot be divided as long as I live up to the 3 core principles I just talked about. Bless your corazon. Have a great rest of the week. It is the end just about of hump day. Bless y'all. Keep your powder dry and stay as frosty as you possibly can.
Across country,